Welcome to DIY is my happy place. I'm Amy, and today I'm going to show you the basic gnome body making techniques. Once you learn this skill, the sky's the limit of what you can make. I'm going to show you two different ways to create a gnome body. Once you have the body of the gnome down pat, it's like instead of giving you a fish, you see my pun here with my fishing gnome, instead of giving you a fish, I'm going to teach you how to fish. I'm going to teach you how to make your own gnome bodies, and then anything is possible. Two different types that I want to show you today. One is the standing gnome that stands on her own, and you can put little feet on or just let her sit right on the base, or this type of standing gnome that has legs. And it doesn't matter which one you want to do. I'm going to show you in a fast, easy way how you can make it so you have no fail gnomes. So let's have some fun. Let's talk about basic gnome supplies. I use basically the same things over and over again. I like to get a good heavy-duty sweat sock. Now, sometimes you can get these at the Dollar Tree or pick them up in bulk at, I guess what you'd call a big box store. The longer the better, because if they're long, you can make two for the price of one. You can either get them in black or white. Then I also get felt and these curlers from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to show you different ways that we can make arms, sometimes with paper towels. And the main key, if you're going to do standing gnomes, is to get the balloon stick straws that have these little attachments. Not all balloon stick straws have attachments. And I'm going to show you at the end how to use these, why this is the key element. But you definitely need these attachments for it to work. And I picked this up with the balloon stick straws that have 4 of them at the Dollar Tree, or you can get them on Amazon. And I will put a link below. The other thing that I use is plastic golf balls. And then let's get started, and I'll show you 2 different ways to make gnomes. Now, the first thing I do is I take these long men's sweat socks and I cut them in half because I'm going to be able to make 2 gnomes out of this. Now, this little piece is the only part that I won't use on my gnome, but don't worry, it's still not trash. I can use it for my faux trash bag that I made on a previous DIY that you can hide away your valuables in your car. I love this so much. You're going to want to check that video out. Okay, but for now, let's not talk about the scraps that I have left over from trash. Let's get to our gnomes. Now, since I cut this one in half, I'm going to go ahead and glue one end. Now, this I know is going to be the top of my gnome, so it doesn't have to be really solid, and you don't have to sew it. You're just closing it off, so to speak. Now, I want to talk about the filling. I like to use an old pillow for my stuffing because it's cheaper than buying batting or cotton or anything like that. And, just recycle. I love to reuse and recycle. Now, when you use the pillow, you do need to pull it apart because it kind of gets compact, and that's the whole reason why you need to recycle this thing. So you want to pull it apart and get it real light and fluffy. And depending on which type of gnome we're going to be making, there are the weighted type gnomes and there are the standing gnomes. When you're doing the weighted gnomes, you want them to be heavy. And when you're doing standing gnomes, you want them to be light. So whenever I'm talking about standing gnomes, I'm going to be using cotton and different things to make it very lightweight. If I'm using my weighted gnome, then I want it to be heavy so it won't be tippy. 2 different styles, and I'm going to show you the who, what, where, when, why, and how we would do each different type of gnome. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing two types, one with the lightweight cotton and one with a heavy weighted sock. The key to being able to make these standing gnomes that you can make the body ahead of time and then attach the legs later is without a doubt balloon stick straws that have these handy dandy attachments. And you can get them either from the Dollar Tree or from Amazon. I will put a link for the Amazon balloon stick straws below. And you have to make sure they have these attachments. If they don't have these attachments, then it's really not going to work. So that is definitely the key. I made this up in my head and I was just, oh man, I hope this would actually work. And it really does. So you definitely want to get yourself some balloon stick straws whenever you see them in stock. And again, they're not always in stock at the Dollar Tree, and that's why I put the Amazon link. There are a lot of different types of balloon stick straws, but you have to make sure they come with those attachments, or else you just have some cool straws. Okay, so when I'm making them, I'm going to push these balloon sticks all the way to the very top of the sock, which is going to be the head. But if they aren't up there, you will finish making your gnome, and then once it has its hat and everything on it, it'll become top heavy and it'll start to bend. So you do go to all this work and then your gnome tips over because it starts to bend. So just getting those all the way up in there is the key element to creating a gnome that will hold itself up. And then after that, add a little more stuffing, and we want the sock to be in the form of a large potato. Now the very, very top we aren't going to worry about because we're going to be putting the nose, arms, and hat up there, and you're not going to see all of that. But it is important to make sure that it's kind of rounded. You don't want it to be poking out. So what I'm going to do, because I'm using two different socks here, I'm going to glue those pieces together and just clip it so that it won't poke out and look like I've got a square head. Okay, but if I was just using an ankle sock, I wouldn't have to do that part. But because, I'm using a cut in half sock, that's why we're going to do that. Now, on the bottom, we want the legs, depending on what size your shoes are, depends on how far apart you're going to have your straws. But what I do is I add some heavy amount of glue right on the cotton, and make sure that you add the glue even to the straw, and then we're going to set that aside and let that dry. And that is how this is going to hold its position. It's fantastic. It works and works. I've made over 100 gnomes using this exact technique, and it just is fabulous. The second gnome body I'm demonstrating today is what I call a weighted gnome that does not have shoes. In order to make this gnome work, you need filler, something to weigh it down. You can use rice, pea gravel, aquarium gravel, or even kitty litter. Really anything that you want to use to weigh down that sock will work great. I picked up this kitty litter because my son was going to throw it out. Their cats didn't particularly like it, and I thought, oh, I can use that to weigh down my socks for my sock gnomes. Now, the trick is getting the kitty litter into the sock. This is harder than it looks. And I'm sure there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but this is the basic way. You want to get your sock wrapped all the way around the cup of your kitty litter, and then don't try to just pop it off too soon, or you'll spread kitty litter all over. So let me demonstrate that again. I turn it upside down, still holding the sock together. It would have been better with a cup without a handle. And then just kind of work the kitty litter down in. Now, this is the same for using gravel or rice or whatever. If you are using rice, which a lot of people don't particularly like because they worry that maybe mice will get to it, I've heard a rumor that putting a bay leaf is something that mice don't like. I don't know. But maybe if you're selling your gnomes, it might be a good idea to have something else as your weight instead of rice, just for peace of mind for people. So kitty litter's a good option. Whatever you can get in bulk for a good price. That's what I say. You don't want to spend your money on something you don't actually even see. Now you want to kind of push it down in so that it will hold itself up. I'm going to add a little tiny stand that will look like feet, but you don't have to. You can just have them be standing in the sock itself. Even with this type of gnome, I don't mind adding some balloon stick straws because it just helps to hold its position, because sometimes they start to sag and they start to get a little bottom heavy, so to speak. So I'm going to use my same technique because I have extra balloon stick straws, and I'm going to glue those in to help hold its position. Then once I put clothes on this and different type of accessories, then it will hold its shape. While that's drying, we're going to start working on the nose. I have used everything from plastic golf balls to ping pong balls, styrofoam balls. All of these I can pick up from the Dollar Tree. But like any other thing, on any given day, they don't always have all of these options. So that's why I like to have options. I just get what I get and I don't throw a fit. I always cover my nose with a pair of nylons. One pair of nylons will last for a lot of gnomes because I just cut off little tiny pieces and I save the rest for the next gnome. I just wrap the nylons around the golf ball and tie it off with a pipe cleaner. I can't even imagine crafting without pipe cleaners. They are the perfect tool to be used, or decoration, or there's just so much you can do with pipe cleaners. So I always have them on hand and just wrap those around and tighten them off, and that's all you have to do. Now, if you're using a ping pong ball, every once in a while, in the process of wrapping your nylon, it will ding the ping pong ball, like it might dent it in. And I have found that if you take a hairdryer to it, it'll pop right back out. So either one of those will work, just depending on what you can get a hold of. Okay, now we're going to talk about the arms. I've done different arms depending on if I want them to be able to be bendable or if they're just going to be down the side and just kind of holding a sign or holding something in front. I'll show you the two different ways. But I like using the curlers if I'm going to have them waving or, really want to be able to form them how I want to form them. Now, you do want to get enough felt to wrap around the curler a few times because we don't want the pink to show through. So that's why we have kind of a long stick. Now, I really like to be able to get a few accessories that I'm going to create and make them last for a lot of gnomes. So I cut my curlers in half because the only part that I need to be bendable is just above the elbow to the wrist. And so it doesn't need to be the curler all the way up through the shoulder. And as I'm putting this together, it'll make more sense. But I'm cutting them in half, and I'm just going to roll my felt up around and then glue this. And this is going to be the sleeve for the arm. As you're making your gnome, make sure the arms are super long. It's always easier to trim off than to not have long enough arms. I like to usually have a piece of plastic underneath this because as I add glue to glue off my sleeve so it looks like it's sewn, I want it to kind of ooze out the edge so that there's not any part of the felt that is kind of poking up. Or you can have paper towels handy. You just want the glue to be able to ooze out and not get on the felt, because if there's hot glue on the felt, then that will stand out and look messy. So this is the option that I do. And then once that's sealed off, it looks great. Now, if you don't do this, it might look like it's okay. And then once you put your entire gnome together, you'll see pieces of the felt sticking out and it won't look professional. So these are the tricks to really take them up another notch. Now, using our paper towel, this is the other option that you can do to give filler for your arms. You can just roll some paper towels, add a piece of tape to hold its place until you can roll it up into the felt, and you can create arms doing that as well. And now these aren't going to be able to bend and hold up into like a hello, I'm a gnome look, but a lot of times don't need that anyway, so you don't need to use the curler. I always try to keep everything as reasonably priced as possible. Don't use things that you don't need. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. Now I want to make this one with a little bit chunkier arms, so I'm going to add a little bit more paper towel. Now, if you are using the curlers, they do come in different sizes. You have really skinny, medium, and larger curlers, so you can get chunky arms with the curlers as well. We're going to do the same technique here, and that is just add some glue and roll it up. Now, if there's pieces of the felt that stick out that you didn't get glue, then you need to go back and glue those or trim off the felt. One or the other. You just don't want it poking out. And anything will work to just wipe off your glue. Now it's coming together. Now this is actually two arms that are just glued together all as one, and we'll cut it down the middle to create the two arms. I make so many gnomes, and I like to make the bodies in advance, and actually the arms, accessories, I like to make them all. And then when I start to put them together and I create in my mind, oh, I want this one to be saying hello, then I can choose whether I'm going to use a bendable arm or not at that point in the process. One thing that I always do, if I use a white sock, I generally use white arms, and then I can add clothing to it. If I'm using a black sock, I'll use black arms, so the felt color can be adjusted. Or if you wanted to, you could even use different colors depending on what you were going to have your top shirt be. So say if it was going to be pink, you might use pink felt, So this is the time when you can change things around. But I like to have just a basic white base, and then I can do a lot of different colors with that. I can change it up however I want. Now, once I cut this in half, I'm going to add glue to the very top, and this part is going to be glued to the top of the head, or what would be like in the neck area of the gnome. So it's going to be hidden in, and that's going to be where I attach it. So I want that to be kind of flat with just almost like a half moon curvature to it. And this is one of the things that if you make these in advance, you're kind of adding a lot of glue on these, and they take a little while to really get dry. And that's why I like to make a few of them together, and then they can just dry and you're not waiting on drying time. Now there's a couple of ways that you can do the hand part, and that is you can either glue the felt all together and pinch it shut and then add a foam ball or a mitten onto the end, or you can have it go up in and look like the sleeve is hanging down over. So either one of these works equally well. I kind of like it with it twisted off, and then I don't have to see layers of felt. So for me, this is kind of my preference right now, but I go back and forth. And again, I get my pipe cleaner out. But these are what I use for my hands. If I don't just cut off the tips of gloves to make a mitten, just the finger tip, you can make a mitten, wrap it around, or the glass filler balls. They're glittery, and I love those. I mean, they're just the perfect gnome hand to me. So fast, so easy, and generic. I just add those, and then those arms can be used for anything. So that's what I do with my arms. Now that I've had time to make my arms, the other gnome is getting nice and dry and solid. And now this is my gnome that's going to be the weighted gnome. So I don't need the sticks sticking out because this is actually going to be the top. So I'm going to cut those balloon stick straws off, and then I will glue up the top, attach a pipe cleaner because I want it to be pretty solid so that the weight of it doesn't sag. We want it to really kind of hold its position. So I'm going to add my pipe cleaners and then form it into shape. Next, I'm going to glue on my nose. He ends up looking kind of like she, whatever he's going to be, looks kind of like a Bert from Ernie and Bert, Sesame Street. Oh, I just love it. But you want to be pretty generous with your glue, and think about this. The gnome nose should be pretty far down. You want the hat to be way above, because what it's supposed to look like is a person has their head bent down, and so what you're seeing is their nose with the hat over it. So sometimes I can glue it on a little higher up because I know I'm going to have a high hat. Okay, that's all there is to it. Now you know how to make the base body for all different types of gnomes. But if you want to learn how to do different types of gnomes, make your own tags, or make your own shoes and how to make them stand. I have over 45 tutorials, so I will link a few below, but certainly you can look at my YouTube channel for inspiration. There we have it. Now you have the basics of how to make a gnome body and how to make it stand. It is so much fun. I have over 45 tutorials, and I have a question for you. Did you know that YouTube allows you to fast forward over videos? You can speed them up, slow them down, cut over. So now that you know how to do the basic gnome, you can watch any one of my tutorials and you can just skip over how to do this part and then just see how I accessorized. Or if you'd like to see a live action how I accessorize, join me on Thursday night at 7 p.m. I'm going to be doing 12 gnome bodies. I have 12 gnome bodies, and I'm going to be making as many gnomes as I can in an hour. So I'd love to see you there. And that's at 7 o'clock Central Time. If you'd like to see how to make these particular shoes, click on this link right here. And I will see you again soon. See ya!